research.
All right. Now we are going to move to audience part of the questions, but while you're thinking about your questions and wave your hand so that microphones can come up. I'm going to kick us off with a question that I'll ask, to get insight from both of you. So yesterday we discussed, actually in the leadership meeting, we discussed many of the challenges that face us, including talent retention and getting computing resources and something. But from also personal point of view, I wonder how your response will be to this question. Demands of the funding agencies have increased recently in recent years, leaving us with little room for risky innovation while we jump from one challenge to another. So what strategies do we need to develop together, maybe collectively as an institute, or maybe individually, project leaders, to manage sponsored demands and pressure to transition applications to real world while also developing new initiatives?
So I think the best that we can do is to drive the funding agencies towards problems that we are interested in, and that will benefit us tremendously. So I see that when we have unique resources and we have unique strengths and unique significant groups of researchers tackling a significant problem, the funding agencies flock to that. So I think that might be a good strategy for ISI, since we are a highly collaborative environment with a lot of diverse research areas.
So do you see a specific niche area that has that synergy that you're talking about?
So you and I are working on a project with the networking division on AI for cybersecurity. That's a very exciting area. I think there's also much that we can do. We had a great talk from Eva this morning about scientific infrastructure at scale. We do a lot of work in the AI group on scientific discovery as well. So there's a few areas where we can make a huge difference.
And drive the science funding. Mm-hmm.
Let me jump in. So we've seen Kristina and Craig and I were on a project where the goals of the IARPA project and the demands were kind of excessive, and it was hard to do the research we wanted to do because there was great research proposed, but it was sort of overridden by responding to sort of a demanding program manager looking for certain metrics, whether they made sense or not. And so there are some things we can do. There's some strategies, including, sometimes we just have to push back and at least argue with the evaluation teams. Whether it's futile or not, we have to make the principled case about why these metrics were how this program was sold, but maybe they're not the right thing to measure the research. There's better ways of measuring the research. And at least we can advance the case. And it may be that not till the project's over that we have the results to really show that we were right. But I think consistently doing that helps us to be thought leaders to understand the problems and what the real issues are, what the yardsticks should be with the research. And so whether it helps with that project certainly sets ourselves up for the next time that program comes around. And the problem doesn't go away because it's not solved. If it's an important problem, it'll still be there again.
All right, we have a question there.
Can I follow up on that and suggest that, do you think that there's any value to pursuing more extreme actions if these kind of fairly milquetoast, but I object-ness kind of objections don't materialize? So some kind of maybe collective action, partnering with the other participants on a program to essentially, strike. Or is that completely never going to do anything at all? And I guess the follow-up on that is, I have the perspective of a relatively junior person here. So is it, it's hard to separate my own progression and growth with how things might have changed, right? So maybe I'm just, fed up with writing too many reports because I now have to write more reports. Or is it that there are more reports to be written, more evaluations to be done? Has there actually been a real sea change with that? And if so, the first question.
Well, yeah. So I'll say so publicly. I don't think you ever want to criticize the guy who's funding you. I will say that there have been other programs I've been in where key technical performers have pointed out where the tests or the evaluations or whatever weren't up to snuff, and it has caused changes in the long run. But there's a certain way to do it, and you want to be on really solid ground. So I think that's one case. And you have to recognize you're not always going to get a change because you have to understand what the pressure is on that program manager. Second thing is try to only work with program managers who are technically sharp because there's a lot easier meeting of the minds when you understand the technology jointly.
So my response is always that, when you do great work, there's no contest to that. And so that's always my focus, no matter what happens around. And I think at ISI we are very good at keeping our eyes on the prize, on the big research questions and the research directions that we want to pursue. So look around you, and there's a lot of people that you can learn from to manage the circumstances and the day-to-day and the tactical problems, and have more of a strategic view on your projects.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you. So Yolanda, I mean, so having been here a long time, I've seen AI go up and down, and now we're everything is good. Do you see anything that could go wrong and somehow derail the good moment we're having now? What do you think are some of the risks that we should try to avoid so that we don't hit another winter?
Yeah, so this is a very good question. I'm not sure what I would like to say about it of all my thoughts, but I will say that we have to be very vigilant. And I think that many people are taking responsibility in that respect of managing expectations and perceptions on AI, day to day and month to month. That's our responsibility to do that. But I also think that we have an obligation to society to push AI forward. This is our moment. This is AI's moment. And if we don't push AI forward to really change healthcare, to really change scientific research, to really change education, a lot of areas where AI can have tremendous societal benefit, it's on us to fail to deliver on those, because the physicists are not going to solve those problems, the chemists are not going to solve those problems. This is us solving those problems. Highly interdisciplinary problems, but still we have that responsibility. So I feel very strongly that we have a lot to learn, for example, from the physics community, in order to portray the exciting research that we can put forward while acknowledging pitfalls and dangers and so on and so forth. But I do think that we have to manage expectations and at the same time push hard the research agenda, because it's very important.
I think just as the semiconductor revolution happened and sustained for roughly around 50 years, the AI industry revolution will also sustain for another 50 years. So, but what is important here is, we have to differentiate between the fundamental research, which is, again, when it comes to the hardware, low energy, high performance, emotional intelligence, whatever standards you can build, that's one type of research. Or we can go into the application research, where we have already developed certain technologies, and you apply that technology with the security that can be introduced and the privacy that can be introduced into the systems.
All right. We have time maybe for one question.
This is for AJ. AJ, as you mentioned, to do research in very deeply scaled electronics, let's say 5 nanometers and below, requires very expensive equipment, laboratories, and all that type of stuff. Do you have, for the United States to retain its superiority in electronics, we've got to do this? Do you have any thoughts about how this can be accomplished at the national level, given the amount of money that you need to have a state-of-the-art laboratory to do this?
So we cannot compete with the industry, because industry already have the UV tools, which is roughly around 500 million, and that can actually reduce the dimensions. That can actually print the dimensions probably down to let's say 28 nanometer space. No other technologies can actually single print down to about 28 nanometers. So we cannot do that. So what can we do? We can work in the space of alternate materials. We can work in the space of, let's say, I was trying to introduce a new type of device technology, which is we have the FD fully depleted SOI technology, and the thickness of the SOI on the FD SOI is roughly around 6 nanometers. But we already know about the 2D materials, which is roughly of 1 or 2 nanometer in space. And how can you integrate monolithically these devices to the back end of line? But just from a university perspective, we have to just show what is the long channel effects of these transistors or memory devices or phase change material, phase change device. I mean, whatever alternate state variable we are going to play from a university laboratory standpoint, and then give this results to the industry such that they can print and give us the product-based results. But otherwise, I don't think we can sustain with the amount of money that is required to build these technologies. So we have to think. Then at the same time, we can also think of gaps in what the industry is doing. I mean, let's say the EUV lithography. EUV lithography, I mean, they have built these huge, massive machines, but what they forgot once upon a time was to build smaller molecules such that these can be on the resist. This can be used as resist. So let's say you have large resist, then the amount of smaller dimension that you can print is big. So you need to make smaller molecules. That means that's a university level research rather than an industry research. So we have to continuously look into the industry and see where the gaps are.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, AJ. And let's thank all the panelists.